Hi YouTubers, welcome back to Vintage Fashion Hat Chat. I'm Norma Shepherd, the director of the Mobile Millinery Museum and the author of 5 books on vintage fashion, including 5,000 hats. And you know, we're kind of leaning into the autumn and we're not quite there yet. The solstice is still a couple of weeks away. I couldn't really say goodbye to summer without having one last look at some daisy hats. Daisies are one of my favorite flowers and some of my most favored millinery trims. So I'm going to show you a few. As always, I'll talk about my hat at the end of the video. And while I'm doing this, I'll just tell you that once again, I have been challenged by a viewer to get rid of the I've been challenged by a viewer to abandon those big loose nylon archival gloves that I generally use to handle the vintage hats and to don something a little more fashionable to wear when I'm handling these hats. So I bring you a vintage lace pair and we'll get started. Now I want to show you something iconic of the 1960s. This wonderful high-crowned bubble toque style hat. This was very popular amongst brides for a going away hat in the late 1960s. This is very flower power. Aren't they just so cheerful? They just scream youth and femininity. These white fabric petals on wonderful yellow chenille buttons, and then of course the contrasting, I just love to touch this, the green velvet bow, and it is so soft. So it's banded all around in this wide velvet ribbon, and then of course punctuated with a bow. Just a really, really sweet piece. And one of the reasons we started collecting vintage wedding gowns was because brides had been donating to us their entire wedding ensembles, and these you know, they're going away ensembles as well, and so that became quite an exciting collection for us. Okay, so let's look at a 1950s version of one of these little iconic daisy trimmed hats. This one is a crocheted straw, the brow of which is trimmed with an even number of little fabric daisies. So if you're doing he loves me not, daisy to daisy, you might find out he doesn't love you, but I think if you pluck the petals as we are supposed to do, it'll work out. The banding on this is a twisted black satin ribbon, and then the bow at the center back. Yeah, so a little more demure, not as striking as the great big late 1960s piece. Yeah. Now I want to show you another piece. We're going back a little further than the 60s. This time we're going back into the 1940s with this wonderful black straw. Ugh. Just look at those fabric flowers with the green fabric stems, the chenille centers for the daisies, and the green leaves, of course. And what I think is wonderful about this hat, aside once again from the velvet band and bow, which is a terrific contrast in textures, but what's really special is the underbrim, where the little daisy bouquet is mirrored on the underbrim. And I think I'll try this one on after I show you the hat I'm wearing. But there's one more to look at first. And of course we know there's several varieties of daisies. There are Shasta daisies and Gerbera daisies, and the ones that we pick out of the garden, you know, he loves me not. So here is a more contemporary piece. This is by Maria Kursick, a BC milliner. I've spoken about her before, and I will link to a video on that does talk about her aesthetic. So now maybe I'll go back to the 50s and try that little one. So a very little demure, maybe a little church hat, still very sort of youthful. So this could have been for a young girl. Should remind you that from time to time we do deaccession pieces. So if there's any pieces in these videos that you see that you would like to purchase or even rent, just get in touch with me through email. We can discuss it. You'll find that email in the description box. So the one that I'm wearing is also by Maria Kursick, a very skilled and imaginative Canadian designer. You can find her online if you're interested. And of course it's done on a hairband, which makes it quite easy to wear. This is the back, and it's a terrific little piece. So I have to give in to the temptation of trying on this wonderful old 1940s piece. I'm just going to look for the center back. There it is. And sometimes the milliner will put a stitch inside indicating the center front. So don't be confused. A seam at the back and just a little colored stitch at the front sometimes. So this is a little tilt hat from the 1940s, and it's just wonderful the way you can see the trim on the brim and the under brim. I love it. While I'm at it, I'll also try the 60s piece. Now this one is not lined, which I find unusual. So it may have been an unfinished piece, maybe an unsold piece. So having taken a closer look inside, I can see that the bow was actually meant to be at the center front. It's very high crown. This could easily be worn over a beehive hairstyle, so popular in the late 1960s. And there you have it. Thank you for watching. Please leave me comments or questions as you have them. I refer you to these videos here and wish you a very hattie day.